So what if the absolute worst thing you could possibly do for your blood sugar was to um, actually stop eating sugar?
Right. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it is a complete inversion of everything we were taught about metabolic health.
Yeah, and today we're tearing down what might be, the single biggest medical dogma of the last 50
We
years.
really are. The sources we're looking at today suggest a paradigm where avoiding carbohydrates might actually be the exact mechanism driving the disease.
Which is wild. And we aren't just talking about a mild disagreement over, like, macronutrient ratios here.
No, not at all. We are talking about fundamentally redefining insulin resistance, blood sugar, and type 2 diabetes entirely.
Exactly. And if you're listening to this deep dive, you know the stakes. I mean, we are looking at an epidemic where over 114 million adults in the U.S. alone are dealing with prediabetes or full-blown type 2 diabetes.
Which is just a staggering number. That's over a third of the adult population.
Right, over a third. And the standard medical response is almost entirely focused on, well, suppression.
Yeah, managing the symptom.
Right. You get told to cut out all sugar, go on a strict low-carb or keto diet, and if that doesn't force the numbers down, you get handed a prescription for metformin.
Or maybe external insulin.
Yeah, or now, I mean, everyone is getting put on GLP-1 drugs, right, on Ozempic,
Yeah.
just to essentially shut down their appetite and force weight loss.
Which, according to the sources we're unpacking today, is the medical equivalent of putting black tape over the check engine light on your dashboard.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Because we've become hyper-focused on treating the visible symptom, the elevated glucose in the blood,
Yeah.
while completely ignoring the underlying cellular energy failure that's actually causing the problem.
And in many cases, actively making it worse, which is exactly what we are unpacking in this deep dive.
We're going to explore the bioenergetic reframing of metabolism today.
Yes, heavily drawing on the research synthesized by J. Feldman, which, builds extensively on the pioneering biological framework developed by Dr. Ray Peat.
And it's championed by researchers like Roddy as well.
Right, so our mission today is to dive deep into the biochemistry. We want to show you why these sources argue that the mainstream narrative is entirely backward.
And, crucially, how to actually reverse diabetes naturally by turning your body's oxidative engines back on.
Okay, so to do that, let's establish our baseline so we can, systematically dismantle it.
Good idea. We have to move past the overly simplistic mechanical models of the human body first.
Right, we aren't just a collection of broken parts.
Exactly. The body is a highly intelligent, adaptive system. Every symptom, including high blood sugar and insulin resistance, is a biological adaptation.
An adaptation to an environment or an internal state. So let's look at the standard lock and key model of insulin that gets taught in, like, every doctor's office.
The classic mainstream myth.
Yeah, the myth. You eat carbs, blood sugar goes up, the pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin acts as the key to unlock the cell door so glucose can get in.
Right, that's the story.
And the mainstream myth tells us that if you eat too many carbs over years and years, you flood the system with so much insulin that the cells essentially become deaf to the signal.
The lock gets jammed, essentially.
Right. The lock gets jammed, the cells become resistant, the sugar stays in the blood, and boom, you have type 2 diabetes.
And the logical conclusion to that story, obviously, is that sugar caused the problem, so removing the sugar is the cure.
Right. It sounds super intuitive. If glucose is piling up in the blood, just stop eating glucose.
But the clinical data and the bioenergetic framework reveal a massive contradiction here.
Okay, lay on me.
Eating carbohydrates does not cause your cells to become resistant to insulin.
Wait, really?
Really?
Yeah.
In fact, long-term high carbohydrate consumption actually increases insulin sensitivity.
Okay, let's pause right there. Because for anyone steeped in the low-carb or keto world, you just spoke pure heresy.
I know, it sounds totally backward.
How can eating the very thing that requires insulin make you more sensitive to it?
Because we've confused the acute, temporary release of a hormone with long-term metabolic dysfunction.
Okay, so a short-term spike isn't the same as a broken system.
Exactly. Look at the historical clinical data. You have extreme interventions like the Kempter rice diet from the mid-20th century.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, patients were consuming up to 85% of their daily calories from pure carbohydrate.
85%.
Yes, white rice, fruit juice, and pure sugar.
Wow. And what happened to their metabolic markers?
Their glucose tolerance improved dramatically. Their fasting insulin levels actually plummeted.
Wait, so their cells became exquisitely sensitive to insulin, by eating mostly sugar and carbs.
Exactly. An 85% carb diet literally reversed their diabetic markers.
That completely shatters the internet diet rules. I mean,
Yeah.
it totally breaks the matrix.
It really does.
But let's flip the coin then. If carbs are actually making the cellular receptors more sensitive, what is causing the resistance?
Well, the sources point directly to the very dietary interventions people are using to try and fix their blood sugar. Low-carb diets, strict keto diets, and chronic fasting. They actually cause insulin resistance.
Okay, I have to push back here. Because if someone goes on a strict keto diet, their blood sugar usually drops, right? Their doctor gives them a high five.
Sure, yeah.
So how can you say keto causes insulin resistance if their blood sugar looks better on the lab test?
Because you have to distinguish between managing a symptom and healing the underlying pathology.
Right, the check engine light analogy.
Exactly, yes. If you completely eliminate carbohydrates from your diet, your blood sugar will drop because you aren't putting any glucose into the system.
Makes sense.
But what is happening at the cellular level? By starving the body of its preferred, highly efficient fuel source, which is glucose.
You force the body into an emergency state.
Precisely. It has to run on fatty acid oxidation. It has to rely on stress hormones.
And that's a bad thing.
Well, it is this chronic, systemic reliance on fat as fuel that biochemically blocks the cell's ability to use glucose.
Oh, wow. So you're actually blocking the machinery?
Yes. Think about it. If a keto dieter tries to eat a bowl of rice after 6 months of strict low carb, what happens?
Their blood sugar will probably skyrocket, right?
To diabetic levels.
Yeah.
Because they have induced a state of physiological insulin resistance.
So their cells have literally forgotten how to, or are actively blocked from, burning sugar.
Exactly. You haven't fixed the engine, you've just stopped giving it the fuel it can't process.
That is such a crucial distinction. It's like saying you fixed your car's broken transmission by just leaving it parked in the driveway.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, sure, the car isn't making that terrible grinding noise anymore, but it's still broken.
Right. And blaming insulin for type 2 diabetes just because it happens to be elevated when blood sugar is high.
It's like blaming the firemen for the fire just because they're always at the scene.
Exactly.
You see a burning building, you see fire trucks, and you say, man, those firemen are really causing a lot of property damage.
That is the perfect way to look at it. Insulin is a responder. It's there trying to manage a crisis.
Okay, so the conventional view is just dangerously reductionist then.
It is. It treats the insulin receptor like a mechanical hinge that simply got worn out from overuse.
Like the lock just got jammed.
Right. But biological systems don't fail because they're just tired. If a cell is resisting insulin, it is actively choosing to do so for a very specific protective reason.
Protective. So it's mounting a defense against something.
Yes, against a profound internal crisis.
So what is the crisis? I mean, if the receptor isn't a worn-out hinge and the cell isn't just tired of insulin, what is actually happening inside the cell of someone dealing with metabolic health issues?
This is where we have to completely redefine what type 2 diabetes actually is.
Okay.
It is not a disease of excess blood sugar. It is a state of acute cellular energy failure.
Energy failure. So the pathology isn't happening in the bloodstream at all.
No, it's happening deep inside the cell, specifically within the mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell, as everyone remembers from high school biology.
Right, your cellular refineries, your oxidative engines. In a diabetic state, for very specific biochemical reasons we'll get into, these engines simply cannot oxidize or burn the glucose.
So the glucose gets into the cell, or at least it tries to.
Yeah.
But the furnace is completely stalled out.
Precisely. And because the cell cannot burn the sugar to create ATP, which is the energy currency of the body,
Right.
the sugar starts to literally back up inside the cellular fluid.
Oh, I see. It's a traffic jam.
Yes.
The cell isn't a locked room with a broken door. It's a parking lot where the exit is blocked.
That's it, exactly. And that internal backlog of unusable glucose physically prevents more sugar from entering from the bloodstream.
Wow.
This is a vital concept for the listener to grasp. Insulin cannot do its job because the cell is completely full.
So insulin isn't broken. The receptor isn't deaf.
No. The insulin simply cannot shove more fuel into a cell that is already drowning in raw materials it cannot process.
In this light, you can clearly see how insulin resistance is highly protective.
Very protective. The cell is putting up a roadblock saying, do not let any more glucose in here.
We can't even process what we have.
Right. And if you force more in, it will cause severe osmotic stress and damage the cell.
That fundamentally shifts the perspective. The cell is literally starving for usable energy. even though it's surrounded by a sea of blood sugar.
Exactly.
It's like the ancient mariner, right? Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink.
That's a brilliant comparison.
But if the cells are starving at a fundamental level, the body as a whole must be registering that. How does the systemic biology react to millions of cells screaming that they're out of energy?
It panics.
It panics.
Yeah. The body registers this profound cellular energy deficit as starvation. And it does this regardless of how many calories you're actually eating or how much body fat you have.
Because the energy isn't getting converted to ATP.
Right. And the human body has a very specific, highly conserved evolutionary response to starvation. It initiates a massive surge of stress hormones.
Like cortisol.
Cortisol, glucagon, and adrenaline.
Wow. The big three.
Yeah. These are the biochemical messengers of famine, trauma, and desperation.
And their job in this scenario isn't just to make you feel anxious or jittery, right? They have a metabolic mandate.
Their mandate is survival. Because the cells aren't getting energy, and particularly because the brain requires a constant supply of glucose to survive, the body assumes there's no food in the environment.
So what do cortisol and glucagon do?
They go to work. They signal the liver to start dumping whatever stored sugar glycogen it has directly into the bloodstream.
But, I mean, liver glycogen only lasts so long. What happens when those stores run low?
This is where the biology gets incredibly destructive.
Okay, brace me.
Cortisol forces the body to start breaking down its own tissues to manufacture new sugar from scratch.
Breaking down its own tissues.
Yes. This process is called gluconeogenesis. Your body literally begins to cannibalize your skeletal muscle, your thymus gland, your skin collagen, and your organ tissue.
Just to harvest the amino acids.
Exactly. It harvests the amino acids and sends them to the liver to be converted into glucose.
Wow. Let me make sure you, the listener, are absorbing the gravity of this. The true driver of the high fasting blood sugar you see in a type 2 diabetic isn't necessarily the bowl of pasta they ate for dinner.
No, it's not.
It's their own liver, whipped into a frenzy by cortisol and glucagon, literally breaking down their own muscles and organs to dump sugar into the blood.
All because the cells are screaming that they are starving.
That is just... It's horrifying but fascinating.
And this is a point J. Feldman emphasizes heavily in his work. He explicitly states that sugar does not cause insulin resistance.
Yeah.
The chronic elevation of cortisol and glucagon, these highly diabetogenic stress hormones, are the real culprits driving the elevated fasting glucose and metabolic syndrome.
So the body is frantically trying to feed the starving cells, but because the mitochondrial engine is stalled, the newly manufactured fuel just piles up in the blood.
Alongside the dietary fuel, yes.
This is a massive aha moment.
Yeah.
We are essentially dealing with an engine failure, not a fuel excess.
Exactly.
Which leads to the most important question of this entire deep dive, I think. What is blocking the exit?
Right. The root cause.
Yeah. Well, why can't the mitochondria burn the sugar in the first place? If we know it's not the carbohydrates' fault, what is throwing the wrench into the cellular refinery?
To answer that, we have to look at the Randall cycle.
The Randall cycle, okay.
Yes. Discovered by biochemist Philip Randall and his colleagues in the 1960s, this is a fundamental, non-negotiable biological principle.
And what does it dictate?
The Randall cycle dictates that fat oxidation and glucose oxidation actively compete with each other for entry into the mitochondria.
Compete?
Simply put, when the bloodstream and the cellular fluid are flooded with free fatty acids, it biochemically shuts down the cell's ability to burn glucose.
Wait, I really need to pause you here.
Sure.
Because in the modern health, fitness, and biohacking spaces, fat burning is treated as the holy grail.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it is the ultimate goal. If you are a fat burner, you are supposedly metabolically flexible and optimally healthy. Are you telling me that burning fat is actively causing glucose intolerance?
That is precisely what the biochemistry demonstrates.
Yeah.
And this isn't fringe theory. This is textbook physiology.
Wow.
As the bioenergetic framework highlights, fatty acid oxidation is synonymous with some degree of glucose intolerance.
That's wild. But why?
Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. When do you rely on large amounts of free fatty acids for fuel?
During winter.
Right. During winter, during famine, during intense, life-threatening stress.
Ah, so fat is your backup emergency fuel tank?
Exactly. When you are forced to rely on it, your body intentionally flips a switch to turn off glucose burning in the peripheral tissues.
Oh, why does it do that?
Because it wants to conserve whatever precious little glucose is left for the brain, which cannot run entirely on fat.
So when people are doing these crazy fasting protocols or eating sticks of butter in their coffee to become a fat burner,
They are intentionally inducing the exact biochemical state of a starving person in the dead of winter.
Oh my God. They are intentionally shutting down their ability to process sugar.
Yes.
But how does the fat actually block the sugar? I mean, what is the specific mechanism inside the mitochondria? Let's get into the weeds here.
Okay, let's look at the electron transport chain inside the mitochondria. This is where the magic happens, where the fuel is finally converted into ATP.
Right.
When you burn fat through a process called beta oxidation, it produces a very different ratio of electron carriers compared to when you burn carbohydrates.
Different ratio of electron carriers.
Specifically, fat oxidation creates a dramatically higher ratio of a carrier called FADH2 relative to another carrier called NADH.
Okay, FADH2 and NADH. Let's use an analogy here. These are like the delivery trucks bringing the raw electrons to the mitochondrial power plant. Right?
A great analogy. Now that the power plant has different receiving docks called complexes,
Okay.
NADH trucks deliver their electrons to complex I. But FADH2 trucks bypass complex I completely and deliver their electrons directly to complex 2.
So what happens when you are burning mostly fat and you have this massive fleet of FADH2 trucks all trying to unload at complex 2?
You get a severe bottleneck. Because so many electrons are being pumped into complex 2, it literally causes a traffic jam in the electron transport chain.
Another traffic jam.
Yes. The flow of electrons backs up and they start leaking out of complex I in reverse.
Whoa.
And when these electrons leak out, they interact with oxygen to generate massive amounts of reactive oxygen species, or ROS.
Free radical.
Exactly.
The highly unstable molecules that cause oxidative stress, damage DNA, and drive the aging process.
Yes. Now, a little bit of ROS is normal, but this massive pathological surge of ROS acts as a signaling mechanism.
Like an alarm bell.
Exactly. It tells the cell the system is overloaded. In response, the cell takes immediate action to stop more fuel from entering the mitochondria.
How does it do that?
It does this by directly inhibiting an incredibly important enzyme called pyruvate dehydrogenase, or PDH.
Okay, PDH. Let's define this clearly for you listening. What is its job?
Think of PDH as the bridge that connects the breakdown of glucose in the cell fluid to the actual burning of glucose inside the mitochondria.
Okay, so it's the final checkpoint.
It is. And when fat oxidation generates that massive surge of ROS, that bridge is essentially blown up.
Huh.
The glucose cannot enter the furnace. It is diverted, turned into lactic acid, or it just backs up, creating the exact cellular traffic jam we described earlier.
That is incredible. So burning fat, literally, biochemically shuts the door on burning sugar.
Yes. It's an either scenario dictated by the Randall cycle.
But surely some fads are worse offenders than others. I mean, the bioenergetic perspective makes a huge distinction between different types of dietary fats, right?
It makes a massive distinction. The research heavily emphasizes two major culprits that actively poison the mitochondria, amplify this ROS production, and lock this metabolic blockade into place.
And what are those?
Polyunsaturated fatty acids, or PUFAs, and endotoxins.
Okay, let's start with PUFAs. These are the highly unstable, easily oxidized fats found in massive concentrations in modern seed oils, right? Like canola, soybean, corn, safflower, and sunflower oil.
Correct. But, and this shocks many people, they are also highly concentrated in fish oils.
Oh man, fish oil. That is going to upset a lot of people.
I know.
I mean, fish oil is pushed as the ultimate miracle supplement for brain health and heart health. How can it be a metabolic poison?
It comes down to their chemical structure. PUFAs have multiple double bonds, which makes them incredibly fragile and prone to oxidation.
Especially when exposed to heat or light.
Or the warm environment of the human body. Dr. Ray Peat's extensive research demonstrated that saturated fats like butter, tallow, or coconut oil are actually highly stable.
So they don't oxidize easily.
No, they don't. In fact, they actually help terminate stress reactions in the body.
But PUFAs amplify them.
Exactly. PUFAs amplify stress reactions. When PUFAs are incorporated into your cell membranes and your mitochondrial membranes, they act like a wrench in the gears.
A wrench in the gears of the power plant.
Yes. They actively inhibit crucial enzymes in the electron transport chain, specifically cytochrome C oxidase.
Which slows everything down.
They slow down the cellular respiration of high metabolic organisms. They literally suffocate the mitochondria.
So you are building your cellular engines out of fragile, highly reactive parts that break down and gunk up the machinery.
That's exactly what's happening.
And what about endotoxins? You mentioned them as the second major poison. How does gut bacteria relate to insulin resistance?
Well, endotoxins, specifically lipopolysaccharides, or LPS, are structural components of the cell walls of certain bacteria that live in our gut.
Okay.
When we eat foods that are difficult for the human digestive tract to break down, which we'll specify later, those foods travel to the lower intestine and ferment.
And that fermentation feeds bacterial overgrowth.
Right, and when these bacteria die or multiply, they shed endotoxins.
And if your gut lining is compromised, which is incredibly common due to stress, poor diet, or even just intense exercise, what happens?
Those endotoxins slip through the gut barrier and enter the bloodstream.
And LPS is bad news.
It's a profound metabolic poison. It triggers massive systemic inflammation, but more importantly for our discussion, it travels to the cells and directly inhibits mitochondrial respiration.
So it shuts down the ability of the cell to use oxygen to burn glucose.
Exactly.
Let me synthesize this picture for the listener. You are eating a standard modern diet, or even the so-called healthy modern diet, full of seed oils, huge amounts of hard-to-digest roughage. Maybe you're taking a high-dose fish oil supplement.
Right.
Your gut is leaking endotoxins.
Yeah.
You are chronically stressed, so your cortisol's high, dumping free fatty acids into your blood.
Yes.
You are essentially launching a coordinated multi-front chemical attack on your own mitochondria. It is absolutely no wonder the engine is stalled and the glucose is backing up into the blood.
And to compound this disaster, this entire low-energy, high-stress state severely suppresses your thyroid gland.
Oh, the thyroid.
Yes, the thyroid is the master conductor of your entire metabolic symphony. It dictates the speed at which your cells produce energy.
So what happens to it here?
When your body is running on emergency fat burning, cortisol, and adrenaline, the liver recognizes the starvation signal. It deliberately stops converting the inactive thyroid hormone, T4, into the active form, T3.
It's an energy conservation measure, like turning down the thermostat in your house during a blizzard.
Yeah.
Because you're running out of heating oil.
Exactly. Add to that the prevalence of estrogen dominance in modern society.
Which is often exacerbated by PUFAs and environmental toxins, right?
Yes. That further suppresses the thyroid and interferes with cellular oxygen utilization. Your overall metabolic rate absolutely plummets.
So you are cold, tired, gaining weight, and your blood sugar is rising, all because your cells are suffocating.
That's the tragic reality.
So, if we take this bioenergetic framework, if the root problem is a metabolic blockade inside the cell caused by the Randle cycle, PUFAs, endotoxins, and suppressed thyroid function, then the standard medical treatments for type 2 diabetes are not just missing the mark, they are bordering on absurd.
They are.
Let's look at external insulin. Millions of diabetics inject insulin daily. But based on everything we just discussed, that shouldn't actually fix anything.
And the tragic reality is it doesn't fix the core pathology. This is what researchers refer to as the insulin paradox.
The insulin paradox.
Giving a type 2 diabetic patient more insulin does absolutely nothing to increase the amount of energy their cells are producing.
Because the furnace is still broken. The bridge, the PDH enzyme, is still blown up by the fat oxidation.
Exactly. The cells still cannot oxidize the sugar.
So what does the extra injected insulin actually do then?
It forcibly clears the glucose out of the bloodstream by cramming it into fat cells. Fat cells are incredibly adept at expanding to store energy, or it forces the liver to convert it into fat.
So it makes the blood test look temporarily better.
Yes. Your doctor looks at your lab results and says, "Great job, your glucose is down." But it is entirely a cosmetic fix.
Wow.
It is useless for solving the cellular starvation. The cells are still dying for ATP.
It's like yelling at a tired, starving horse to run faster.
Yes.
You can whip the horse all you want. You can pump in all the external insulin you want. But if the horse hasn't been fed, if the cellular engine is stalled, it's not going to move.
That is a brilliant analogy.
And the messenger, the insulin, isn't the problem. The engine is the problem.
And this logic extends to the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic that are sweeping the world right now.
Right. Everyone is talking about Ozempic.
They drastically slow gastric emptying and suppress appetite signaling in the brain. People lose weight because they are essentially starving themselves.
But again, does starving yourself fix the mitochondrial blockade?
No. Does it restore thyroid function? No. Does it clear the PUFAs out of your tissues? No.
It just masks the energy failure by enforcing caloric restriction.
Often leading to massive losses of lean muscle mass because the body is still relying on cortisol and gluconeogenesis to survive.
Which brings us to another massive misconception in mainstream diet advice.
Yeah.
The absolute demonization of fructose.
Oh, yes.
We hear constantly that high fructose corn syrup is bad, and obviously highly processed foods are bad, but mainstream science often points the finger squarely at the fructose molecule itself, found in fruit and natural sugar, as a primary driver of insulin resistance.
And non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, too. That is the dominant narrative.
Right. The logic goes that because fructose doesn't get processed in the peripheral cells like regular glucose, but rather goes straight to the liver for processing.
It bypasses the normal metabolic safety valves and just spontaneously turns into massive amounts of fat.
Causing fatty liver and systemic insulin resistance.
Yeah.
It's portrayed as a rogue molecule the body doesn't know how to handle.
Right.
But what does the bioenergetic perspective reveal about fructose?
It reveals something fascinating. The insulin resistance that is induced by fructose is entirely temporary, highly inactive, and protective.
Temporary and protective.
Yes. It is completely different biologically from the chronic pathological insulin resistance we see in metabolic syndrome.
How so? Can you explain the difference between a temporary adaptation and a pathological failure?
Sure. When you consume a substantial amount of fructose, say a large glass of orange juice or a couple of ripe mangoes, your liver goes to work to process it.
Yep.
If there is an abundance of fuel arriving all at once, the liver naturally and temporarily dials down its sensitivity to insulin.
Why does it do that?
Because it wants to pace itself. It is a protective mechanism to stop taking in more fuel from the bloodstream than it can safely process at that exact moment.
Oh, so it's a perfectly healthy traffic control signal.
Exactly.
So the liver is just putting up a please wait sign. Give me a minute. Let me clear this batch of fructose before you send the next wave of glucose.
Precisely. Once the liver processes the fuel, the temporary resistance dissipates entirely. The please wait sign comes down.
So it's a short-term pacing mechanism, not a permanently broken bridge.
The clinical data strongly emphasizes that if the liver is healthy and functioning properly, fructose does not cause hypertriglyceridemia. It does not just spontaneously turn into fat in the blood.
So when does it become a problem? Because clearly some people do have fatty liver disease.
Fructose only becomes a problem if the liver's ability to produce energy is already severely compromised.
So if the liver mitochondria are poisoned by PUFAs.
Or if they are bombarded by endotoxins from the gut or lacking crucial vitamins and minerals needed for respiration, then the liver cannot process the fructose.
It backs up and gets converted to fat.
Yes, but blaming the fructose in that scenario is once again blaming the fuel for a broken engine.
This is a total paradigm shift. It means that real whole food carbohydrates and natural sugars are not the enemy we have been led to believe.
No, they are the preferred fuel of a healthy metabolism.
And if carbs aren't the enemy, then we really need to take a hard, critical look at the popular trends of strict keto diets and intermittent fasting.
We absolutely do.
Because if the ultimate goal is to heal metabolic health and restore glucose oxidation, those practices might actually be doing catastrophic long-term harm.
We absolutely must look at the hidden costs of relying on fat burning and fasting. Let's start with the sheer biological inefficiency of it.
Okay.
When you stop eating carbohydrates, whether through a strict keto diet or prolonged fasting, your brain still requires a significant amount of glucose to function.
It cannot run entirely on free fatty acids or even ketones, right?
Correct.
So where does it get the glucose? We talked about gluconeogenesis earlier, making sugar from scratch. Let's really drill down into the biochemical cost of that process.
It is incredibly expensive. In normal glycolysis, your body breaks down a molecule of glucose and gains a net yield of ATP.
Right, the energy currency.
But in gluconeogenesis, your liver has to run those metabolic pathways in reverse to build a glucose molecule from amino acids.
Well, what's the cost?
This process costs the body 6 molecules of ATP to create just one single molecule of glucose.
Okay, let's do the math on that for you listening. You spend 6 ATP to manufacture this custom glucose molecule. When the brain finally receives it and breaks it down for energy without full oxidation, how much ATP does it get back?
Only 2 ATP.
You spend 6 to get 2.
Yes.
That is a terrible return on investment. That is a massive energy deficit.
Yep.
You are literally running a biological Ponzi scheme that is hemorrhaging your cellular currency.
It is a state of severe biological debt. It is a survival mechanism, pure and simple.
Wow.
It is designed to keep you from falling into a coma during a winter famine. It is absolutely not designed to promote long-term, vibrant health.
And again, where is the body getting the raw materials to build this incredibly expensive glucose?
From your own tissues. You are maintaining your blood sugar by cannibalizing your own lean mass.
But wait, if this is so biochemically disastrous, why do people report feeling amazing when they first start keto or intermittent fasting?
That's a very common experience.
I hear this all the time. People say, I fasted for 3 days, I lost weight, my brain fog vanished, and I've never had so much mental clarity. If it's so bad, why do they feel so good?
It is the illusion of healing. There are two distinct things happening here.
Okay, what's the first?
First, by stopping eating entirely or by cutting out complex fibrous carbohydrates, they are drastically reducing the endotoxin load in their gut.
So they have removed the fermentable foods that were feeding the bacterial overgrowth.
Consequently, their systemic inflammation drops dramatically. That alone makes people feel lighter and clearer.
Okay, that makes sense. A digestive rest. What's the second thing?
The reason they feel so wired, focused, and alert is because their body is pumping them full of adrenaline and cortisol to manage the starvation state.
It's the fight or flight response.
Exactly. The body is literally saying, hey, we're starving to death. Here is a massive hit of adrenaline, so you have the focus and energy to go hunt a mammoth.
Wow. So it's an evolutionary trick to motivate you to seek food.
It is not a state of relaxed, thriving metabolic health. And the long-term consequences of running your life on adrenaline and cortisol are devastating.
What happens eventually?
Eventually, the adrenal glands struggle to maintain that output. The thyroid gets deeply suppressed to force you to conserve energy.
Which leads to those classic symptoms of long-term low-carb dieters.
Yes. A dropping waking body temperature, a decreased resting heart rate, chronically cold hands and feet, thinning hair, dry skin.
And ironically, an eventual increase in visceral fat, right? The dangerous belly fat.
Yes, because chronically high cortisol actively promotes fat storage around the vital organs.
That perfectly explains the keto plateau, where people suddenly stop losing weight and start feeling exhausted all the time.
It really does.
But what about autophagy? This is the ultimate buzzword right now. Everyone says that fasting is the only way to stimulate autophagy, the cellular recycling program that cleans out dead proteins and prevents aging.
It is entirely true that starvation and fasting trigger autophagy, but the bioenergetic framework is very clear on this.
What does it say?
Healthy, robust thyroid hormone levels, adequate cellular energy, meaning ATP, good deep sleep, and regular movement also stimulate robust autophagy. Wow. And they do it without initiating a massive tissue-destroying stress response.
So you don't have to literally starve yourself to clean your cells.
No.
You can clean your house without setting the kitchen on fire.
Exactly. As the researchers in this space beautifully summarize, fasting is a defense mechanism, not a lifestyle.
That is so profound.
You wouldn't pull the fire alarm in your house every single day just to make sure the fire department is awake. You are just causing unnecessary panic.
That's a great point.
Right.
Okay, so we've thoroughly diagnosed the problem. Insulin resistance is an energy failure caused by the Randle cycle, PUFAs, endotoxins, and stress.
Right.
If we want to truly fix metabolic health, if we want to reverse type 2 diabetes naturally and sustainably, we have to get out of this emergency state.
We have to clear the traffic jam.
Yes. Rebuild the body's oxidative engine so it can actually burn sugar again. How do we do that? Walk us through the bioenergetic reversal protocol.
The protocol synthesized from J. Feldman and Ray Peat's work lays out a very clear, highly actionable, albeit wildly unconventional path.
Okay, where do we start?
It starts with what you absolutely must stop doing. First and foremost on that list, stop consuming polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Okay, so no more PUFAs.
You must ruthlessly remove seed oils, canola, soybean, corn, safflower, sunflower, and yes, even the highly marketed fish oils from your diet.
Because you have to stop supplying the raw materials that poison the mitochondria.
Exactly. Stop inhibiting cytochrome sac oxidase.
Clear the wrenches out of the gears. Check. What is next on the stop list?
Stop the strict low-carb diets, the keto diets, and the excessive fasting protocols.
Right, because of the stress hormones.
You must break the body's reliance on the Randle cycle and chronic cortisol production. You need to send a visceral biochemical signal to your body that the famine is over.
Okay, no more fasting. No more forcing the body to eat its own muscle. What else?
Stop eating endotoxin-promoting foods. This is where it gets highly controversial for the mainstream wellness crowd.
I can imagine.
The protocol specifically suggests avoiding hard-to-digest raw fibrous vegetables.
Wait, like massive bowls of raw kale or huge spinach salads?
Yes, as well as undercooked starches and certain whole grains or legumes, particularly if your digestion is already compromised.
Wait, you're telling people to stop eating giant raw salads, the quintessential health food?
From a bioenergetic perspective, yes. Because the human digestive tract does not possess the enzymes necessary to break down dense cellulose.
So what happens to it?
When a metabolically compromised person eats a massive bowl of raw kale, it sits in the lower intestine and ferments. It feeds bacterial overgrowth, which generates huge amounts of endotoxin, or LPS.
And that endotoxin enters the blood and directly paralyzes the mitochondria.
Exactly. The classic healthy diet of raw roughage and whole grains might actually be the very thing keeping your cells locked in an energy deficit.
That is going to break some brains, but mechanically it makes perfect sense. And the last thing to stop.
Stop fasted excessive cardio. Waking up at 5 a.m. on an empty stomach to run 5 miles on a treadmill does nothing but spike your cortisol even higher.
Floods your blood with free fatty acids.
And crushes the conversion of your T4 to active T3 thyroid hormone. It reinforces the stress metabolism.
Okay, that is what we stop. Now, what do we start doing? Because this is the part that I think is going to absolutely shock people who have been dealing with blood sugar issues.
We start consuming easily digestible carbohydrates.
Okay.
And we are not talking about a tiny restricted amount. The protocol suggests a minimum of 150 grams per day.
Minimum.
Ideally pushing toward 200, 300, or even more grams scaled to the individual. The goal is to strongly, consistently signal energy abundance to the liver and the thyroid gland.
Hang on, let me channel the skeptical listener right now.
Go ahead.
If I have severe insulin resistance and I drink a glass of pulp-free orange juice right now, my continuous glucose monitor is going to beep frantically.
Yes, it probably will.
My blood sugar is going to spike.
Yeah.
How can you possibly say that 300 grams of carbs is healing me?
It is a vital question. We have to separate the acute symptom from the long-term cure.
Okay.
Yes, if you have been low-carb, or if your mitochondria are currently blocked by PUFAs and endotoxins, introducing easily digestible carbs will cause an initial rise in blood sugar.
Because the cellular engine is still rebuilding.
Exactly. But you must provide the preferred fuel glucose to signal the body to turn the enzymes back on.
Ah, I see.
If you never provide the fuel, the body will never upregulate the oxidative machinery. You are providing fuel that does not create endotoxins, which allows the gut to heal.
Which removes the LPS from the blood.
Which slowly unblocks the mitochondria.
So it's physical therapy for your cells. It might hurt a bit at first, the numbers might fluctuate, but it is the only way to rebuild the muscle.
Precisely.
So what specific carbohydrates are we talking about?
We are talking about fuels that are effortlessly processed by the upper GI tract, leaving nothing to ferment in the lower gut.
Like what?
Ripe, sweet fruit. High-quality fruit juice like pulp-free orange juice, which is loaded with potassium and magnesium that act like insulin sensitizers.
Okay.
Raw honey. Pure white sugar, which is just a clean disaccharide of glucose and fructose.
Wow.
Milk, if you tolerate dairy, because the lactose is highly protective. Well-cooked root vegetables. And white rice.
You are literally telling people that to reverse diabetes naturally and restore their metabolic health, they need to drink orange juice, eat raw honey, maybe use some white sugar, and avoid giant bowls of raw kale.
That's what the sources suggest.
It is the exact inverse of the modern matrix.
It is the inverse, but it aligns perfectly with the biochemistry of cellular respiration.
Fascinating.
Alongside these clean carbohydrates, you must add saturated fats like coconut oil, butter, ghee, or the natural fat on high-quality meat.
Why saturated fats specifically?
Saturated fats provide stable, non-inflammatory energy, and most importantly, they do not inhibit glucose oxidation the way PUFAs do.
And what about protein? Obviously, protein is essential, but is there a bioenergetic catch?
There is a massive catch, and it's all about balance. The protocol highlights the importance of balancing the amino acids from muscle meats like steak or chicken breast.
What's wrong with muscle meats?
Muscle meats are very high in amino acids like tryptophan and methionine. In excess and without balancing amino acids, methionine can be inflammatory and suppress the thyroid.
And tryptophan.
Tryptophan is the precursor to serotonin, which in the Peat framework is actually a stress hormone that lowers metabolic rate.
Wait, serotonin is a stress hormone. That's another entire deep dive right there. But how do we balance the muscle meat?
By consuming the amino acids found in the connective tissues of the animal, specifically gelatin and collagen.
Oh, like bone broth?
Yes. These are rich in glycine, an amino acid that is incredibly protective, anti-inflammatory, and acts as an inhibitory neurotransmitter.
So eating gelatin or drinking bone broth with your muscle meat balances the amino acid profile and supports liver health.
Exactly. In fact, we have clinical data on how balancing macronutrients impacts blood sugar. A brilliant study published in Diabetes Care in 1984 by Nuttall and colleagues looked at this.
What did they find?
They found that simply adding protein to a glucose meal cut the initial blood sugar spike by 34%.
34%, just by adding protein.
Yes. And astonishingly, when the subjects ate a second meal 4 hours later, the blood sugar spike shrank to just 7%.
Wait, adding protein to the sugar cut the spike to 7% on the second meal. That is incredible.
It is.
So the body was priming the metabolic machinery. It shows how dynamic the system is when given the right combination.
Exactly.
And what about the timing of these meals? If we aren't fasting, how often should we be eating?
You should eat frequent, balanced meals. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. The ultimate goal is to keep blood sugar stable through a constant exogenous supply.
So you never run out of fuel.
If your liver always has a steady supply of clean glucose, the body never feels the need to pull the fire alarm.
It never has to release cortisol or adrenaline to regulate your energy.
Exactly. You turn off the stress pathways by simply feeding the machine.
Okay, so you adopt this bioenergetic approach. You clear out the seed oils, you stop the keto and the fasting, you start drinking the orange juice and eating the honey with some gelatin and butter.
Right.
How do you know it is actually working? I mean, if you aren't supposed to obsessively prick your finger every hour to check your blood glucose, what are the metrics of success?
This requires a major psychological shift. You have to start fixating purely on fasting blood glucose because, as we've established, that number is heavily manipulated by stress hormones.
Right. So what do you track instead?
You need to track the true physiological indicators of your thyroid function and your cellular metabolic rate.
Which are?
You track your waking body temperature and your resting pulse.
Temperature and pulse. It sounds so old school, almost like a 19th century country doctor, but mechanistically it makes perfect sense.
It really does.
If your cellular furnace is finally burning hot and oxidizing sugar, you should literally be warm.
Precisely. The metabolic rate is essentially how much energy and therefore heat your body is producing.
And what numbers are we aiming for?
You want to target a waking temperature around 98.0 degrees Fahrenheit, ideally rising to 98.6 degrees by mid-afternoon.
And the pulse.
You want a strong, steady resting pulse, perhaps in the 75 to 85 beats per minute range.
Okay.
If you are waking up in the low 97s with a pulse of 55, your metabolic rate is deeply suppressed, regardless of how perfect your diet supposedly is.
And what does the timeline for this look like? People are so used to the rapid artificial weight loss of keto. What should they expect here?
As you implement this protocol, the subjective improvements are usually the first to appear. Your body temperature and resting pulse will begin to rise before the metabolic symptoms fully resolve.
So you'll feel warmer and more energetic.
Yes, your energy will return, your hands and feet will get warm, your sleep will deepen, and your digestion will improve, often within a matter of weeks.
That sounds amazing. But what about the actual glucose tolerance?
Reversing actual glucose tolerance, meaning repairing the mitochondrial machinery, turning over the cell membranes to clear out the stored PUFAs, and fully restoring the PDH enzyme so your body can handle a heavy carb load without a glitch that takes months, sometimes years.
So you have to be patient as the body completely reconstructs its enzymes and clears the metabolic poisons.
It's not an overnight fix because you are rebuilding the engine from the ground up, not just hiding the check engine light.
Okay, let's pull all this together for you listening because this has been an absolutely massive deep dive into a completely alternate universe of biology.
It certainly has.
To summarize, insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes are not diseases of excess sugar. They are symptoms of starvation at the cellular level.
Exactly.
When your mitochondria are poisoned by polyunsaturated fats from seed oils, bombarded by endotoxins from hard-to-digest roughage, and stressed by low-carb diets, the Randle cycle engages.
And fat oxidation shuts down glucose burning.
Right. The cell fills up with unusable sugar, locking the door, and the body panics, releasing cortisol to break down your own muscles to make more sugar.
A vicious cycle.
But by prioritizing easily digestible carbohydrates, adding saturated fats and balanced proteins, supporting the thyroid, and ruthlessly avoiding metabolic poisons like PUFA, we can literally turn the body's oxidative engines back on.
That is the bioenergetic promise.
If you're listening to this, understanding your own metabolic health means you have to fundamentally change the questions you ask yourself.
That's so true.
You have to stop asking, how do I forcibly lower this number on my blood test? And start asking, why is my biology adapting this way? Why is my body stressed? And what fuel does it actually need to feel safe?
That is exactly the right question. And it leaves us with something profound to consider as we wrap up this deep dive.
Give it to us.
If our modern epidemics of chronic disease, from diabetes to heart disease to cognitive decline, are fundamentally driven by a cellular lack of energy rather than a gluttonous excess of calories, how might this completely change the way you view not just your diet, but your entire high-stress, fast-paced modern lifestyle?
Wow.
Are we truly an overfed population, or are our cells just suffocating in the dark?
Suffocating in the dark. That perfectly encapsulates the tragedy of the mainstream approach.
Hmm.
We want a simple diagnosis, a bad guy to blame, like sugar and a pill, to fix it.
But it's never that simple.
The reality of our biology is that it is deeply, inextricably connected to our environment, our stress, the integrity of our gut, and the exact nature of the fuel we choose to power our lives. Insulin resistance is not a broken lock. It is a desperate plea from your cells for usable energy, something very heavy to chew on the next time you look at polluted food.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.